Tokyo will hold the Olympics in 2020. I'm sure you know what it is. Yes, swimmers, marathon runners, wrestlers, and so forth come from all over the world to compete with each other. About 80 years ago, Tokyo was set to hold the Olympics, but was unable to because of the Second World War. Japan lost the war, and as peace returned, the Japanese were determined to hold the Olympics in Japan. Now, I will talk about Fred Isamu Wada, a Japanese American that worked very hard in order to hold the Olympics in Tokyo. Please listen to his story. Fred was brought up in Wakayama. Over 100 years ago, his parents migrated to the United States and started a small restaurant in Bellingham, Washington. He was born there in 1907. When he was just 4 years old, however, he was sent to his grandparents in Wakayama because his family was very poor. As there were no airplanes at this time, the 4-year-old boy had to get on board a ship alone for a very long journey. He must have felt very lonely. He would have missed his parents as he left them standing at the beach. His challenging childhood may have played a part in his strong determination to hold the Olympics in Japan. Fred lived in Japan for 5 years before returning to the United States to work at a farm in Seattle, Washington. He cultivated the soil to grow vegetables, worked long hours, and went to school to study hard. Thanks to his effort, when he was 20, he was successful to the degree that he ran a grocery store in Oakland. He was married and managed 3 grocery stores very well. In cooperation with the Japanese Americans in the town, he enjoyed his enterprise. However, in December 1941, everything changed. A war broke out between Japan and the United States. Soon, Japanese Americans were sent to concentration camps. Fortunately, a close American friend helped Fred. Thanks to this, his family and 130 Japanese Americans were allowed to work at a farm in Utah. The soil was arid, and it was freezing cold in the winter. The pipe water is frozen. The lamp is dim. His children shivered with the cold rolling up in a blanket. He told them, "Be patient. Everything will go well. When the war is over, Daddy will help you." Fred was mentally tough and always encouraged himself, even in hard times. They cultivated the arid field for 2 hard years. "Look, these carrots look delish. Fresh green spinach. Big heavy cabbages." The field became so rich that everyone expressed their delight. However, when Fred set out on his way to Salt Lake City to sell a large amount of vegetables, he was unexpectedly told no Japs could use the highway. Japs would put poison in the lake by the highway. Japs is a very offensive word used to mean Japanese. Still, he believed the Japanese should not be treated like this because we work diligently. He appealed to the authorities, and he could sell his vegetables. One day, Fred came back from the market and ran up to his wife crying, "The war is over! Japan lost!" It was on August 15th, 1945. They threw themselves into each other's arms and wept. I wanted the war to end as soon as possible, but I did not want either Japan or the United States to lose. He really hoped so because he loved mankind, not a specific state or nation. Soon after the war ended, he moved from Utah to Los Angeles. And, with the help of his American friend, he bought a large house. When he made his home, he would receive important guests from Japan. In 1949, Los Angeles was to hold the U.S. National Championships Aquatics. 6 Japanese swimmers, including Hironoshin Furuhashi, were to take part in it. Just after the war, however, hotels refused to accept them. Then, a newspaper carried advertisements that asked locals to accept the Japanese swimmers. Fred and his wife talked about it. "Fred, shall we invite and take care of the swimmers?" "That's a good idea. We can invite 9, 10, or more people. We should have our children help us." So they welcomed the swimmers. "Thank you for your invitation. Nice to meet you. Oh, don't take off your shoes. That's the American way." Many other things surprised them, especially the dinner. A large cake with chocolate written letters, "Welcome." Deep-fried breaded cutlets, steaks, ham and eggs, salads, and of course, Japanese white rice and miso soup. Fred's wife cooked for them. Because they had never seen such a dinner, the guests were amazed by its excellence. During the war, the Japanese were very hungry because they ate only soup with a few pieces of sweet potatoes or rice. Japan did not have enough food even after the war. That is why the swimmers were surprised at the supper in the United States. What's more, Fred gave them new suits. The swimmers greatly appreciated the hospitality of the Wadas. The swimmers were refreshed by the hospitality of the Wadas. "Okay, here we go!" They were full of energy. On August 17th, 1949, the Japanese players, including Furuhashi, set new records one after another. The Japanese people, depressed after the defeat of war, were full of joy. At this time, as there was no TV, people had their ears glued to the radio. The victory made the Japanese determined to restore their country. It also made Americans call them Japanese, and they praised the swimmers as the flying fish of Fujiyama. The Japanese were proud of this description. Ten years later, the Japanese Prime Minister and the governor of Tokyo went to Fred with an important proposal. They wanted to hold the 18th Olympics in Tokyo in 1964. They went to Fred because they knew this could not be done without his help. "All right, I will take it. The Tokyo Olympics would encourage the Japanese, and they would be proud of themselves. I love Japan." Although he agreed to do the job, it was a big challenge considering the conditions of Japan at that time. Once again, Fred had to survive hardship. The location of the Olympics is chosen by the majority of the 58 members of the International Olympic Committee. This time, 4 cities, Detroit, Vienna, Brussels, and Tokyo, were the delegates. Fred's mission was to convince the members that Tokyo, Japan, is a wonderful place. please choose Tokyo. Do you remember that when choosing the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics of 2020, the Japanese were appealing to hold them in Tokyo in fluent English or French? I'm sure you may have watched it on TV. Fred and his wife visited various countries by themselves to ask the people they met to choose Tokyo. Fred and his wife visited 9 Latin American countries, including Mexico and Panama, for the Olympic Games bids, without coming home for nearly 40 days. I'm sure the Tokyo Olympics will definitely encourage the depressed Japanese after the defeat. His love of Japan was his fuel to visit the other countries. He borrowed no money to go abroad. Sometimes, the couple spread out his wife's kimono beautifully and gave it as a present. After a sense of relief and a successful appeal to the Latin American members of the IOC, the Japanese government asked Fred to go to Munich, Germany. The IOC held a meeting in Munich to elect the location of the Olympics by the 58 members. At the meeting, Kazushige Hirasawa, a Japan Broadcasting Corporation commentator, made an excellent speech. A Japanese textbook for the 6th grade elementary school children had this poem: "Olympics, Olympics, listen to the word, and we will be happy." Once he arrived in Munich, Fred asked the members to choose Tokyo as the Olympics location. Finally, they decided the place: Tokyo. 34 of the 58 members voted for Tokyo. Can you imagine how happy he was? He and his wife were rewarded for all of their efforts on their long and hard journey. On October 10, 1964, Tokyo's blue sky burned brightly with the sacred flame. The fire gave the Japanese great hope, and they were determined to build a new Japan. It was Fred Isamu Wada that made all of this possible and helped to restore the Japanese with energy.